Hey everybody, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. You know, over the past 20 years of me digging for records, I have found some pretty crazy records and some pretty crazy places. So I thought I would pull out just 10 crazy stories of crazy records I found in crazy places. So before we get started, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and post a comment. Let me know what you think of the video, or just anything. I'd love to hear from you guys and learn more about you. If you have Instagram, I have a shop in Matthews, North Carolina called Noble Records, where I'm always buying collections, recommending records, things like that. So follow us on Instagram at Noble Records. So anyways, I've been shot at. I've been bit by black widows. All kinds of things looking for records. When I tell you, I will dig anywhere, anytime, because I love it. And I love digging up those dusty records that have been long forgotten. So these are some crazy records. No, the records aren't really all that crazy, but the places I found them are pretty crazy. First story, this was about probably 2010 or 11. I bought a massive record collection. It was 40,000 records. There were 4 jukeboxes, 20,000 45s. It was crazy. It was a massive collection. I was 22 years old. I was very young and stupid, and I shouldn't have bought all these records. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun. It was a good learning experience, and I made money on it, so who cares? But I was at that time I was young and I could do it. I moved everything by myself. Borrowed my dad's trailer and was able to move everything by myself. And so I tried to get rid of everything as fast as I could, just so I could focus on the good stuff in the collection. Ended up moving everything pretty quickly. I ended up bulk selling a lot of it out because it was just too much for me to handle, and a lot of it was $1, $2, $3, $3, $5 type stuff, and it was going to take me forever to sell, and I just didn't have the space for it. So long story short, I moved most of it just kind of in bulk to a couple different dealers that dealt in like antique booths and things like that. So I kept a good bit, and then I sold a good bit on eBay. I used to sell on eBay. Anyways, that's not what you need to know. The last thing I had left from this collection that I was trying to get rid of was this jukebox. And I was dying to get rid of this jukebox. It wasn't a cool one. It was one of those that, rule of thumb is if the jukebox, you can see the record dropping and the needle moving over, those are worth more money than the ones that are just like, you can't see the record. It's just something you would see in the back of a bowling alley somewhere, you know what I mean? That you just push a button and it plays a song, and there's records in there, but you can't see them. Those aren't worth very much. I couldn't get rid of it. I almost couldn't give the darn thing away. And ended up having a yard sale, and a lady came, and she was really interested. She's like, how much do you want for this jukebox? I'm like, make me an offer. And she said, I've got this little like antique shop. I would love to get it. I can't move it myself. And I was like, I'll move it for you. I'll take it there. And she said, well, I've got some records in the back. If you can have the stack of records, I'll trade you for this thing. And I was like, I don't even care what the records are. That's great. So I put it in the back of my truck, drove it over there, dropped it off for her. She handed me the stack of records, and this stack of records was a bunch of blues records. And this was the Lightning Hopkins Smokes Like Lightning on Bluesville. Now, one thing about these records is some of them aren't the exact copies. This isn't the exact copy. The copy I got was a little bit rougher than this. This one I actually upgraded, so this is a really nice copy. So these may or may not be the exact copies, but I'll let you know. But this was in there, and along with a bunch of other Lightning Hopkins. Actually, there was like 5 or 6 Lightning Hopkins records in there, but this one was one that kind of stood out that I absolutely loved. And I've listened to this record 1,000 times. Love it. I love all the Lightning Hopkins stuff, especially the Bluesville Prestige label. I love that. And so this was a really nice treat for me to find in there, and I just went down the rabbit hole listening to blues after that. But yeah, that's a great one. Another one, this was probably a couple years later. I don't know, but I was trying to track down all the Led Zeppelin Japanese pressings, and the last one I needed was Physical Graffiti. Couldn't find it anywhere. Now, I don't really care much about Japanese pressings, but at the time, being a Zeppelin fanatic completist, I really wanted this record. So I found somebody. I don't even know how I found them, but I started corresponding with this person, and they were like, I have some Japanese pressings, and there's some Led Zeppelin ones, I think, and I would love to meet you somewhere. So we were actually out on a road trip. This was before we had kids. or anything. Me and my wife had just gotten married, and so we were traveling around, and we were up somewhere towards Asheville, North Carolina, and this lady said, "I've got some." And so I said, "Well, where can I meet you at?" And she says, "I work this fireworks stand." And this was like near 4th of July or some holiday that there's fireworks involved. And there's this huge firework tent. And I go to this fireworks tent, and she has this crate of records, and they're all Japanese pressings. And one of them was Physical Graffiti. So I found this at a fireworks stand. Kind of weird. But, you know, incredible record, obviously. Good pressing of it. Great stuff. Another time we were on a road trip. We were traveling through the specific time. There was this guy I had been kind of talking to online, and he said he had some cool records that he was willing to sell. He's like, "If you ever pass through my area, let me know." So I found out that day I was going to be passing through this area, and so I sent him a text. I was like, "I'm going to be passing through your area later tonight. Are you going to be around?" Didn't hear from him. And I really wanted to see the records he had, so I kind of drug my feet a little bit getting out there because I wanted to make sure that I had time to see these records, and he just never responded to me. So we ended up eating in that area. This was just me and my wife at this point as well. We ended up eating in that area, getting some to go, and we were sitting in the car eating. I think we were eating Cookout because it was the only place that was open. It was super late. And I get a bing, little text, and he's like, "Hey, sorry, I just saw this. Are you still around?" And this is like 1 in the morning maybe. It was really late. It was raining out, and I was like, "Man, I don't know if I want to meet this guy. This is kind of weird." My wife is always like, "No, let's go home." You know, she's usually pretty supportive, but when it's like this, she gets a weird vibe. She's like, "Absolutely not." So I'm like, "Yeah, where are you at?" And he sent me the name of the road, and I'm like, "What's the address?" He's like, "Just go to the end of the road. You'll see me." And I'm like, "This is the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and it's raining." It wasn't heavy rain. It was a light drizzle, but it was still raining. And I was like, "Are the records going to get wet?" He's like, "No, I've got, you know." And so I'm driving down the road, and there he is, and he's waving at me, just this weird guy. And I was like, well, I mean, you know, if he's got records, I'm in it. And so we pull over, and he's like, "Yeah, just pull up here." And there was like a awning. It was like apart from where this house was, and he had some records under it. And I went digging through the records, and there was some killer stuff in there. I can't even really remember what all was in there, but I know that the record I kept was this Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii. This is a bootleg. But anyways, I wanted a recording of the show. Now that's been reissued a million times by all these different bootleg labels, and it's pretty easy to get. But then it was not. It was hard to get, and I couldn't find one. So I was dying for this copy, and this is in great shape. Ended up getting a really good price on all the stuff he had. It was a really shady thing. I don't even know. I felt bad about it. My wife was not thrilled with the situation. I mean, who wants to be out in the middle of the night dealing with some weird guy in the like pitch black dark rain? I mean, it was a crazy, crazy deal. But anyways, we got it done, and I ended up getting a cool record out of it. So that was kind of a weird one. I've worked a bunch of different jobs before I owned a record store. One of them was when I was young, I did some landscaping. So I was landscaping this one particular day, and we were going through. We did like certain days we would do residential properties like people's houses, and then other days we would do commercial properties like shopping strips and things like that. So we would do these certain sets of shopping strips on one particular day. And I was trimming behind this shopping center, and there's a Chinese restaurant, and out behind the Chinese restaurant by the dumpster is a crate full of records. And I see a guy out there smoking. I'm like, "What's up with this crate of records?" He's like, "They're trash. Don't know, whatever." And I went digging through them, flipping through them, and lo and behold, there's this original Fugees, the score in there. And, you know, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but, I mean, I don't know how long it had been sitting out there, but it wasn't warped or anything. It was right in the middle of the stack. And so I found this joker for free outside of a Chinese restaurant. Pretty cool to find that. I was like, what the heck? And the rest that were in there were like hip-hop 12 inches and stuff, and I probably should have taken the whole crate, but that's the only one I remember ended up getting. Another one, this one's cool. I wanted this record forever. This is Mighty Baby. If you've not heard this record, I talk about this record all the time. It is one of my absolute favorites. But it was one of those I could not find. I wanted it so bad. And back then, this was probably 6 years ago. 5 years ago, I don't know. Then I just, like, finding it online, it was going for like $300 or $400, and that was just an insurmountable amount of money to me. I could not make myself go online and pay that much for it. I wanted to find it out in the wild, even though the odds of finding it out in the wild are extremely slim. And I was talking to this old guy, and he was like, hey, I've got some records. I need to get rid of them today. My wife said they have to be gone today. We're cleaning our house out, and she wants them gone today. So if you don't get them, I'm throwing them in the dumpster. I'm like, just tell me which dumpster. But anyways, I was at work, actually. I had a job at the time that was not records related. And on my lunch break, I drove to this guy, and he's like, yeah, my wife put them in the trunk this morning, and they've got to go. Like, they're in my trunk. And I'm like, well, this is hot. This is the middle of summertime. I got to look at them. So I went there and looked at them. It was awesome stuff. Ton of Pink Floyd. Like, I remember there was like every Pink Floyd record, ton of Frank Zappa, stuff like that, and this Mighty Baby was in there. I gasped when I saw it. I could not believe what I was seeing. It's incredible shape. It's a promo, super clean. Could not ask for a better copy of this record, but finding it in the trunk of a car, I was like, I can't even believe this. So, if you're a record person, you know that when everybody finds out that you collect records, they're like, hey, I have some records, or I have a friend who has some records, and so sometimes you're given some records and things like that. My mom, a friend of my mom's was talking to me. She's like, yeah, I know where some records are that you could probably get for free if you want them. I'm like, really, where? And she said, there's this church, and the church, like, basically the church had built a new building, but they had an old church building as well that was still, like, functional, that they used for events and stuff, but they had a new church building that was like a lot nicer, so they didn't really use the old one that much. So in the old church building, she said, I'll ask the pastor if you can go in there, but I'm pretty sure that there's some records back there in there somewhere. So I was like, I'm in it, let's do it. So I said, we talked to the pastor. He's like, yeah, go in there, and you can take whatever you want, because we don't need them. We need to clean that space out anyways. So I went looking for the records, and I found them in the baptistry. So if you're not familiar, like Baptist churches, when they baptize, there's an opening behind the stage that there will be, like, I think this one had like some forest painting in it, and to where it would simulate the outdoor effect, and down underneath where the wall ends, you're basically in a big bathtub, and it fills up with water, and you're able to do the baptism. Well, it was drained of all its water, and in this bathtub was full of records. So I remember going in there. This was probably, I was a kid. I was young. And I pulled out this record I had been wanting forever. And at the time, it was this Eric Clapton. This is not the exact copy. This is a upgrade copy. This is a nice promo copy with the shrink and hype sticker and all that stuff. Really great record. But I remember being, like, so super stoked to find it. And to find it in a church baptism was a pretty weird place to find it. Let me see what's next. This is a pretty good one. So, don't look. I'm gonna surprise you. This was during my landscaping days, and I was surfing Craigslist like crazy. When I would get back in the truck from landscaping, and this guy on Craigslist said he had some records. I called the guy. He's like, "Yeah, man, I got a bunch of stuff. Got like some Beatles records and some Led Zeppelin records." And I'm like, "What Led Zeppelin records do you have?" And he's like, he's reading through a couple, like, the regular, Into the Outdoor, Presence. And then he said, got one that says, How Many More Times? And at that point, I was like really getting into bootlegs. This was forever ago. And I just started really getting into bootlegs, and I couldn't find them. And I didn't want to go on eBay to buy them. And I was like, man, I know that one. That one's really good. So I was like dying to get over to this guy's house. So as soon as I got off work, I head straight over to this dude's house. And I pull up in the driveway, and when I tell you this was a crack house, this was a freaking crack house. I was like, I should not even go into this house. It was so, it wasn't just like a rough house. It was a crack house. So I'm like, got Led Zeppelin, I gotta just do it. So I go up to the door, knock on the door, and open it, and I'm telling you, it stunk to high heavens. There were people laying all over the floor. Like, it was a illegitimate crack house. It was nasty in there. And I walked to the back of this guy that had this room, and he had some records, and it was just like people had been smoking cigarettes in there for 90 years. It was so nasty. And I was like, I remember thinking I could lose my life over this Led Zeppelin record. So I ended up looking through everything, and he wanted like $1 million each for everything, like all the Pink Floyd, or all the he had a ton of Beatles records he wanted a fortune for. Anyways, so I pull this one out. This how many more times, and I think I talked him down to like, I think he wanted like $200 for it or something. I think I talked him down to like $25 and got it. But this is it's not a great sounding bootleg. It's Pacific Arena, Long Beach, California, 1975. It is an audience recording, so it doesn't sound that good, but it's a 3 LP. The artwork's super cool. I was so stoked when I got it. I was like so stoked, and basically couldn't get out of there fast enough. But I got out with my life and a Led Zeppelin record. So what more could you ask for? Another time I was going around, I was traveling through an area, and I think it was on like OfferUp or something, one of those apps, and somebody said that they had some records, and so I messaged them, and they said, yeah, we can meet you. He gave me the address, and he said, when you get here, don't pull into the you can pull into the driveway, but don't come up to the house. I'll come out there. Just send me a message. I was like, okay, don't know what the deal was with that, but I pull in this is out in the middle of freaking nowhere. Pull into this gravel driveway, and just enough to get out of the road. Send the guy a message, and you see like the driveway goes into woods. So I don't even see the house. I just see this gravel driveway going into woods. About 5 minutes later, this guy rides down. He's on a bike, and he has a trash bag full of records tied to the handlebars of his bike. So I was like, oh boy. And this is like a black trash bag full of records. He slaps them on the hood of my car, and I'm going through them. They're all junk. But in there, somehow, miraculously, is this Funkadelic Maggot Brain. This is the nicest copy that I have ever found. And it is super clean. Nice, like, corners, crisp, Unipack. Is a beautiful copy of Funkadelic Maggot Brain. But that's where I found it. And I was like, how is this happening? So he wouldn't sell me just the one, so I had to buy the whole bag of records to get this one, but it was cheap. I mean, I think I paid like $20 for the whole bag of records, so it wasn't, it wasn't. I think there was a couple other decent ones in there, but they were kind of in rough shape. But I don't know what was up with that one, but it's a nice one. All right, last one, but not least. This is a pretty good story. So I got in contact with this gentleman. He said that he sent me some pictures of some records he had. His entire garage was covered in records. The floor of they were stacked upright, kind of like this, but they were on the floor, and it covered his entire garage. It was full. It was thousands of records. And I sent him a message, and I was like, hey, I think he posted on Craigslist or something. This was back now. Craigslist is garbage, and you can't get anything on there. But then that's where I got like a ton of my leads was on Craigslist back then. And so I was like, hey, how much do you want for everything? And I can't remember how much it was, but it was a pretty good price. And I said, has it been picked over? What kind of music it is? And he's like, hey, it's classic rock stuff. There's all the ones you want to see. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, all that stuff. All that's in there. And it's classic rock stuff. I said, and the number one question I ask is, has it been picked over by somebody? Has somebody come in there and cherry picked all the good stuff out of it? And he said, no. No one's even looked at it. It's all still intact. It's still here. And I said, if I come in there and it has been cherry picked, I'm walking straight out the door and I'm not buying anything from you. And he said, he's like, no, it hasn't. And I said, I will be able to tell if it's been cherry picked. And he said, no, because you can tell. You go into a collection like that and you see a bunch of things that are pretty good, but you see a bunch of Chicago, Grand Funk Railroad, Bad Company, James Gang, stuff like that that's not worth a lot, but it's still like classic rock. And you're like, anyone who has this type of stuff also had Led Zeppelin, also had the good stuff. And not to say that that's not good stuff, because those albums are great. It's just that that's the stuff that sells fastest and that people that are flippers go for. So when all that stuff is missing and it's only the $5 records are left, then you're like, and you can tell it's been picked over. So anyways, I get there, not to mention it's like a 2-hour drive. I pull up in the driveway, and I look in the garage. I'm a little early. There's 3 people in there digging for records. And I am so angry. I drove 2 hours to get up here, and there's people digging through the records. So I walk up to and he's like, oh, guys, it's time to go. And I'm like, no, keep digging. I ain't buying nothing from you. And we had agreed on like a certain amount. And he said, come on, you could just buy some of them. And I was like, I didn't buy anything from you. I was so livid that I had drove 2 hours. And here's the thing. People don't care about you or your time. They want to screw you over. So this guy figured this guy's already agreed to whatever price that I'm going to pay if it's as described. And so if I can make a couple bucks by some other people digging through it, I will. So he wanted some other people to dig, and he didn't want me to look through everything, which you don't ever not look through anything. So whatever. I can't tell you how many times that happens to where the seller does not care about you. They want to screw you over as hard as they can. And I can tell you a billion stories. Maybe I'll do a video about like top 10 times I've been screwed over. But anyway, so this particular time I was so angry. And so all the other people left, and they ended up leaving the records there, and he ended up not letting them buy anything. And he said, listen, I promise they haven't been, picked over. These people are the only people that had come, and I didn't let them buy anything. So I ended up looking over it and finding like maybe 100 records I really wanted. And I ended up giving him like, I don't know. He didn't want much per record, and I ended up getting those. And I'm like, you're not sticking me with all the junk. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to get some good stuff out of it, maybe I'll take all the junk. But So anyways, and I was walking out to my truck with a box of records, and I was like, what's up with this dumpster? The dumpster's full of records. And he's like, oh, that's just a bunch of junk that we pulled out that I know is trash. And this is one that was in there. This is what it looked like. This is the exact copy. And I noticed that this right here is John Bonham. This is the bottom of his face right there. And this says Live Led Zeppelin on it. So obviously I took it and got it home. And inside was these trademark equality labels. There was the red vinyl and the blue vinyl. And I ended up printing this out. So this is something I printed afterwards. But this is the Live on Blueberry Hill. That's the cover for it, kind of. And so this is the trademark quality colored vinyl version of Live on Blueberry Hill. Super hard to find. I have a friend that I'm going to let this go to. I've specifically saved this to tell it in a story in a video, and then I'm going to get rid of it. I just recently got a super nice copy of it from a friend.
Oh, there you are.
So this is the one I just got from a buddy of mine. This is a really, really super, super, super clean, super nice one that I got from him. It's got the artwork with it and everything. It is beautiful. So that's my upgrade copy that I'm going to keep, but I'm going to get rid of the other one to a really good buddy of mine who's looking for a copy. But I want to tell you that story first. So ended up lucking out with some records in the garbage. I have found a bunch of records in the garbage. I use the dumpster dive behind record stores all the time and get lots of great stuff. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, and check out all the links below for all of our socials and online stores. We will see you guys next time.